two speakers tonight is Steph and Sarah. They'll introduce a quick overview of their bio when they're ready to speak. I initially met Sarah at the DVLA Coding Club, or Coding Challenge, sorry, which actually involves about 3,000 children across the whole of Wales each year. We have a group, BCS group, well, BCS and STEM members, where we do work with Lego Mindstorm and robotics, and that's what we were showing at the DVL Coding Club. And that's another activity that if anybody wants to get involved with that, let me know through the contact details, which were up on here earlier and we'll put up again at the end. And we'll be most welcome to join us on that, as well as the coding clubs, which, sorry, Steph and Sarah will be talking about this evening. So I'll hand over to Sarah, I think, is going to open it, and we'll go from there. So hopefully you'll enjoy this evening's presentation and you'll get actively involved with either the Lego robotics group or one of the two coding clubs, which Steph and Sarah will be talking about. So over to yourself, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good evening, everybody. Noswyth da to everybody in Wales. Just a quick note on the DVLA Coding Challenge. So the reason that started was because of Code Club. So Mark Jones from the DVLA used to be associated with Code Club, and I think he still helps a few code clubs that are running and take part in the competition every year. So there's a nice little link there. But yes, thank you all so much for coming this evening and for taking some time out of your evening to hear about these two programs. This evening we'll be talking about the Code Club program and CoderDojo as well. So we'll explain the differences between the two. We'll talk about what each of the programs aims to do and how we go about achieving those goals. And then, of course, we'll talk about how you can get involved, what volunteering with these programs entails, and also the benefits of volunteering as well. And you don't have to choose between Code Club, CoderDojo, or the Lego project. You can run the Lego program in a Code Club or a CoderDojo, which is exciting as well. Okay, but before we get started, I should share my slides. I've just realized I'm not doing that.
Yeah, if I can just quickly interrupt and welcome Hayley as well, because you weren't showing under your name. I hadn't realised you were there, Hayley. So welcome as well onto the panel. Hayley will represent STEM and connections through which you can get involved through STEM. So she'll also make a bit of a short presentation this evening as well. So thank you, Hayley. And back to Sarah.
Evening, Hayley. Okay, fantastic. So a quick introduction. My name is Sarah and I am the community coordinator for Code Club in Wales. So it's my job to support our existing community here and to help new people that want to join the network by providing training, information sessions like this one, and by providing resources as well. I was asked to give a little bit of my background, but I don't think you'll be very impressed because I don't have a computer science background, unfortunately. My background's astronomy. The reason that I'm working for Code Club is that I've spent, I think, longer than I care to say, working in outreach now. So working with schools, getting children excited about STEM, normally astronomy, but now I've moved into computing and I'm loving it so far. And I'm here today with my fantastic colleague, Steph. Pass over to you to introduce yourself, Steph.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Really great to see you on the call. So I'm Steph. I am the community manager for CoderDojo in the UK. And I joined the foundation almost a year ago now. And my role is to support new clubs to get up and running. So helping volunteers in the community and community venues to get up and running with clubs and to help them run sustainably too. So long-term provision. And my background is also not computer related. So my background is really in working with families and young people in health and social care, and also community engagement and events. So I've worked for a number of charities such as Alcohol Change, running the Dry January campaign. I don't know if anybody's recently completed that challenge. And also I've worked with a number of housing developers, engaging residents and young people in the new communities that they're making. So I was really excited to join the foundation to bring my engagement and events experience to the clubs. And yeah, dojos, as you'll find out, are about the whole family coming along. So it's really exciting to bring that into the coding clubs.
Oh, I learned something new there, Steph. So much experience.
Something for everyone.
Okay, so jumping into it, I thought I'd start out by giving you some context. So both Code Club and CoderDojo are programs that are run by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. And the Raspberry Pi Foundation is a charity. It's an educational charity that is part funded by the sales of Raspberry Pi computers and Raspberry Pi products. So I'm sure that everybody here, or at least many of you, will be familiar with Raspberry Pis. They're these small credit card sized computers that you can see on the left of my screen now. And they're designed to be cheap, versatile, and really accessible. And they're used by everyone from teachers in schools to hobbyists making home tech. And they're also used a lot in industry as well. So I know they're in most of the electrical car charging ports in the UK. They're in vending machines as well. And for those of you in Wales, I always like to emphasize the local link as well. So the creator of Raspberry Pi, Eben Upton, is actually from Wales. He's from Pontypool. And they're manufactured in Wales as well. So they're manufactured at the Sony UK Technology Centre that's in Pencoed, which isn't far from where I'm based in Cardiff. So if you're working with children or with young people in Wales, that local link is always something that they get excited about. So it's always worth highlighting that. But yes, the Raspberry Pi Foundation runs a range of formal and non-formal education programs, of which Code Club and CoderDojo are two of the largest, and both of them are non-formal learning. And I always like to provide this context because when you join either of the communities, you're actually joining the larger Raspberry Pi Foundation community too. And that gives you access to a huge range of opportunities for yourself and for the young people that you're working with as well. So this includes a large range of CPD that covers everything from cybersecurity to accessibility. You get access to our research. We have research exploring gender balance in computing, AI. We have research that looks at pedagogy. And then for the young people that you're working with, we have other education programs and competitions as well as Code Club and CoderDojo that you get access to. So my favorite and the one that I find most exciting, not surprising given my background, is a competition that we run each year called AstroPi. And this is a competition we run in collaboration with the European Space Agency. And a lot of CoderDojos and Code Clubs take part. And it basically allows young people the opportunity to either send messages up to the International Space Station or to actually run experiments using the instruments that they have on board. So it's really exciting, and it's just one of the opportunities that you get when you join this community. So yes, it's a very exciting community to be part of. And our mission as a charity and as a community is, as you can see here, to empower young people to realize their full potential through the power of computing and digital technologies. So that is the mission of the Raspberry Pi Foundation and everyone involved with it. And through Code Club and CoderDojo, we use our coding clubs that enable us to drive this mission forwards by offering free spaces for young people where they can spark that passion for digital making. As I mentioned, we're both non-formal learning, so our focus isn't on teaching specific concepts or specific vocabulary. It's really on building skills, building confidence, and giving young people the skills that they need to create things that matter to them in the digital space, and on having fun and making friends while they do that. So now let's jump into each program. I'm going to start off by sharing this 2-minute video, and I've just realized I think I forgot to share sound again. So just give me a nod if you can hear this stuff.
Code Club and CoderDojo are both part of the Raspberry Pi Foundation, a UK-based charity that works to put the power of digital making into the hands of people all over the world.
Code Club and CoderDojo are both free coding clubs for young people to get excited about coding and digital making. CoderDojos are led by volunteers and typically run in community venues at the weekends or in the evenings. Dojos are a place for young people between the ages of 7 and 17 to learn how to code and create their own projects with technology.
I like the model of the CoderDojo, you know, happening once a month. CoderDojo is really supportive as well. Employees are really supportive.
Yeah, it's really fun in CoderDojo because like you meet loads of friends and all. Sometimes you can do teamwork and all, but then sometimes you can make your own projects and it's really fun.
Code clubs are led by a teacher, either by themselves or with the help of a volunteer, and are usually run as an after-school club for young people aged 9 to 13. Students learn how to make games, animations, and web pages using step-by-step instructions that are specially created by Code Club.
It was pretty simple in terms of setting it up. Those kids who've had those experiences of making different games, different projects through Code Club, when you pitch a challenge to them, they know how to face problems, they know how to problem solve.
Code Club is on once a week on Thursday and I go every time I can. The best thing about coming to Code Club is that you get to do anything you want with coding and yeah, it's really good.
Code Club and CoderDojo are both free informal clubs.
Led by awesome people in local communities and supported by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. The Raspberry Pi Foundation team provide amazing free learning resources, training for volunteers, and the opportunity for young people to enter our special competitions and showcases.
Kids in code clubs and CoderDojos all over the world are learning to code.
So get involved and start a club today.
Fantastic. I'll pass over to you, Steph.
Thanks, Sarah. So hopefully from the video you can see that our clubs have a lot in common. They're both taking place all around the world, they run for free, and they are led by volunteers and educators across the community. And just to be clear, I thought it might be useful just to take a little closer look at the ways in which the clubs are different as well. So they do reach slightly different age ranges, you can see on the little diagram there, and they're also different in where they run and who comes along to the clubs. So Code Club usually taking place in a school, and they are open just to the young people who come along to that school. They fit in really nicely with the school day, so we see them taking place on weekdays, either before, after school, or maybe as a lunchtime club. So if you're already connected to a school, then this might be a really nice opportunity for you to get involved. Dojos, on the other hand, we see them taking place in lots of different community spaces, and they usually run on weeknights or on weekends, and they are open to all young people of the community, which is really nice because we often see whole families coming along, and yeah, open to everybody, and very flexible. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more now about CoderDojo, and then I'm going to hand back to Sarah, who's going to tell you more about Code Club. We'll have lots of time for questions at the end, so if you want to pop them in the chat in case you forget them, then please feel free to do so and we will pick them up. So the first thing to tell you about dojos is that every dojo is different, and we absolutely celebrate that. We are an open source model, and that means that anybody anywhere in the world can start a club. We do ask that you get on board with our key values and our morals, but take the idea and make it your own. And you can see on the slide here, we've got lots of examples where clubs all around the world have even adapted our logo to make it a good fit for them and their local community. And so we're not prescriptive, but we do have a bit of a session model that we ask clubs to get on board with. So the model is really to start with an icebreaker. So a really short, fun activity just to get everybody feeling comfortable, get the social interaction going. And this is really important for dojos because you have young people coming from across the community. They might not necessarily already know each other. So if you're a new club as well, it's really important. The main chunk of the session is to make something cool with code. And this should be led by the young people. So what they're interested in, whether it's having their first go using Scratch or whether they're making a game, using a microbit, creating a website, it should be led by their interests and what they want to create with. And then the end of the session should be a show and tell. So this is a really nice opportunity for young people to get to share what they've been working on throughout the session, celebrate, give feedback, problem solve with their peers. And it's a really nice platform for them to have to develop these softer skills outside of the classroom environment. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a clearer picture of what a dojo session looks like. And so we'll have a little look now on who's involved in dojos. So dojos really benefit from having volunteers from all different backgrounds with different experience and sets of skills that they can bring along. To give you a bit of a flavour of the different roles and some of the tasks that people might do in those roles, we have some examples here. So we have our champion or co-champion role. So some clubs like to split this between 2 or 3 people. And this is all about coordination. So this is the person who gets the club up and running, make sure everybody's in the right place at the right time, liaising with the volunteers, with the venue, and they have that passion and that drive to get the club up and running and keep it going. And next we have the technical mentor. So this might be someone who's got some existing coding skills or some experience to bring along to the club so that they can guide the young people through their digital making projects and help them move on and develop new skills too. And then we have a guidance mentor. So this might be somebody who's maybe heard of coding, wants to find out a little bit more and is able to support with those beginner projects. They might also have no coding experience like me and can go along and volunteer and bring other useful skills to the club. They might have youth experience. They'll be able to welcome everyone along, set that informal social atmosphere for the club. They'll be enthusiastic, helpful, maybe setting up the venue, tidying away at the end, chatting to the parents that come along. So lots of different ways to get involved as a mentor in a guidance role. And then finally, we have our support volunteer. So again, this is a role that doesn't require you to be an expert in coding at all, but there's lots of things you can do in a volunteer support role that are key to the dojo being a success. And sometimes you don't even need to go along to the sessions. So there's things you can be doing behind the scenes, such as managing a social media page, managing the session bookings, liaising with the venue, and lots of different ways to get involved. And as you can see on the next slide, thank you, Sarah. The roles are just not set in stone at all. They can be adapted and they are flexible to meet your skills, your interests, so you can make sure you get out of what you want from your volunteering experience. So if you're in a volunteer support role, you might also do a bit of mentoring and so on. You might also spot we have in the green circle another role on here. So our safeguarding sponsor. This is something we ask all clubs to have in place. So it's a volunteer who has that extra responsibility to pay certain attention to our safeguarding policy. So to make sure the club is running in line with our safeguarding policy, to make sure all volunteers have a background check in place, and to make sure that everybody who comes to their club as a volunteer has completed our safeguarding training. I'll cover that a little bit more later. But yes, it's all very flexible. So, go along to a club and find out how you want to get involved, and I'm sure there'll be a good fit. In terms of time commitment, Dojos are very flexible, so whether they run weekly, monthly, term time, that comes down to the volunteers and the venue to manage that. We find that volunteers usually volunteer around 3 to 4 hours per month if they're involved with a dojo. So works for lots of people with lots of different routines. So thinking a little bit more about where dojos take place, we've seen in the video that they run in community spaces. So anything from youth clubs, libraries, offices. We had one that was running on a double-decker bus, I think, at one point. So think about public accessible spaces in your community where young people want to go. Think about what they identify with, where they feel comfortable. And yeah, they just need basic facilities. And what we mean by basic facilities is tables, chairs, power sockets. If you do have an internet connection or some access to tech such as laptops, then that's a real bonus as well. And you can see on the little animation there on the slide some of the most common places that our dojos run at the moment. So after the presentation this evening, if you go away and think you would like to get involved in a dojo, then there are 2 ways that you can do that really. You can find an existing club to go and join. On our website, we have a tool which is called Find a Dojo. And you can just type in your town or your postcode and it will bring up any clubs that are nearby in your area. And you can get in touch directly and ask to go and visit, ask to go and volunteer. The other thing you can do is to start a new club. So to do that, you would follow the little steps set out on the slide here. So firstly, become a champion, take on that coordination role, get a team together who can help you do it. Don't try and do all of this on your own. So think about your team, friends, colleagues, local students who might be able to help get the club up and running, get it off the ground. You'll need to find a venue. So again, think about in your community, it will be different for everybody on what place is the best venue for you. And once you've got your place and your team, then you can start planning your dojo. So think about how often you're going to run, think about the skills you've got within your team. Do you need any extra equipment? And when you've got your plan together, start promoting. So let everybody know about your club so that they can find you and come along. Now, you're not left to do all of this on your own. We have lots of resources and training to help you along the way. So I mentioned earlier, we have an online safeguarding module. This is something that we do ask all volunteers to do, just so you feel prepared when you come along to the sessions. It's about 20 minutes and it's a free online training. We also have some other training modules such as how to mentor, how to start a dojo, and they're all optional if you want to develop your skills further. We also have our Champions Handbook, which is a really thorough guide, and it covers everything that you'd want to consider before starting a dojo, all the way through to some example session plans as well. We have lots of template posters, letters, assets for social media to help you recruit volunteers, to spread the word about your club and to celebrate your projects as you go along the way. And don't forget, when you start your club, you're joining our global network. So there is a CoderDojo Slack where you can connect with volunteers all across the world. And also our team is here as well. So don't forget to keep in touch with us along the way. And the other thing on the list to mention is the Raspberry Pi project site. So we have hundreds of free projects that are already written up for young people to follow. So if you're looking for inspiration or projects to use in your club, we have hundreds of free resources in different languages, different pathways that you can follow, depending on what equipment you're using. So we have some quotes from our volunteers talking about their experience with volunteering at a dojo so far, and I'll leave you to read them and take them in while I pass over to Sarah, who's going to talk to you about Code Club. Thank you.
I don't want to interrupt anyone that's reading these quotes now. I'll leave them up for a minute. But that was a fantastic introduction to CoderDojo. Thank you very much, Steph. And I know you've already heard this, but if you do have any questions, about CoderDojo for staff, just pop them into chat and we'll get round to them at the end of the session. And I will assume that everybody's finished reading. Otherwise, if you do want to enjoy these inspirational quotes while maybe setting up your own CoderDojo, we'll be sharing these slides after the session as well. So you can read them there. And now I'm going to move on to Code Club. I almost said CoderDojo again. Now I'll move on to Code Club. So you've already heard what Code Club is through that video, and Steph's gone through the differences between Code Club and CoderDojo, but I'll just reiterate the main differences, and that is that Code Club is, first of all, our age range is slightly different. Code Club aims our clubs at young people aged 9 to 13. Which is a slightly narrower age range than CoderDojo, and Code Clubs are also largely run in schools. But something that I did want to mention is that although we are run in schools, Code Clubs shouldn't just be an extension of the school day. They are non-formal learning environments, and importantly, they should be relaxed. They should be fun spaces where young people can come along to explore, to get creative, and to build up their skills. And all of the impact research that we've done so far has shown that the real benefit of Code Club is the development of soft skills that children are able to develop in that kind of environment. So things like communication and social skills, but also things like resilience and problem solving and creativity. And it's really important that they're in the right environment to gain those skills. And although Code Clubs are run in schools, we do have quite a few that are looking for volunteers. So don't feel like that is not an environment for you. So we have around 3,000 Code Clubs that are currently registered in the UK. And as you can see, over 1,700 of those have marked themselves as looking for volunteers. So when a Code Club is registered on our site, they can tick a little box that says, I'm looking for volunteers. And these are educators that are looking for extra help, and normally they're looking for volunteers with specific knowledge and specific coding knowledge that they may not have to help them feel more confident running their clubs. So you could be a really good match for them. I won't demo it right now, but once you've signed up, or if you sign up as a volunteer on the Code Club website, you can search for your postcode or your area, and it will show you all of the clubs within that area that are looking for volunteers, and then you can contact the club leader directly. Okay, so I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what a Code Club is and what they look like. So as you can see on screen, a Code Club has 4 main elements. The first element is the educator or volunteer. So this is the adult that is responsible for running the club. And there are only 2 roles within a Code Club. There's the club leader, and this is the person that organizes the club. They find a venue, a space, a time that works for the club. They make sure that there's devices available for the children. They gather any permission that's needed from parents and guardians. And then the second role is the volunteer, and this is a supporting role. So you'll come along to share expertise, to help the children, to debug programs, etc. So both of those roles are really important. And again, you can share tasks between those roles as well. And then the second ingredient for a Code Club is the venue. So for most Code Clubs, this will be a classroom or a library space within a school, anywhere that has space for the children and has devices set up and ready to go. So all of our coding projects that Steph briefly mentioned, I'll talk about them a little bit more in a minute, but they are designed to run on pretty much any internet compatible device. So whether you have Raspberry Pis, of course, Chromebooks, tablets, laptops, PCs, most of our coding projects will run on any device that you have, as long as it's internet compatible. So the third ingredient I just briefly mentioned is our projects. So most Code Clubs will choose, for most Code Clubs, the club leader will choose 1 project each week, and then the children will work through that project. And the projects are the main offering of Code Club. It's what we give to the coding clubs to help them run. And then the fourth ingredient, and the most important, of course, is enthusiastic children that are excited and keen to learn to code. And it's our mission across the Raspberry Pi Foundation to make sure that coding clubs, both CoderDojos and code clubs, are open to all young people, regardless of their background. So everything that we offer is completely free. Okay, so these four ingredients can be pretty much tailored to suit your circumstances, your needs, your schedule. But I'll show you what a very typical code club looks like. So a very typical code club would run for 1 hour per week outside of class time. So this could be an after school club, a lunchtime club, a breakfast club. They have around 10 to 15 children, but again, that's very typical. We've seen code clubs running with as few as 3 children up to an entire class. We offer volunteer support, like I've already mentioned. And to be honest, I think anything above about 10 children, and you're going to need some help. You're going to need more than 1 member of staff. So we normally recommend 1 adult for every 10 children to keep things manageable. It says here, Code Club is perfect for beginners, and that is both beginners in terms of children that are beginner coders, but also, as Steph and I have demonstrated, also adults and club leaders can be complete beginners. You can learn alongside the children. I've already mentioned you don't need any additional equipment. If you do happen to have microbits, Raspberry Pis, Sense hats, if you do happen to have this extra hardware lying around, then we do have coding projects that use these, but they're a bonus. They're not necessary for the majority of our coding projects. So that is a very typical coding club. Now I wanted to talk to you a bit more about the coding projects that we've touched on briefly. So I think we have just over 100 coding projects currently available. And as I said, I'll be sharing these slides, and the URL you can see at the top there will take you to where you can find all of those projects. And these projects cover a range of programming languages, a range of software, and a range of hardware. You can run through them as standalone projects, or we also have a structured curriculum of projects that you can work through. And these slowly build skills and confidence and independence over time as children work through them. So each of the projects is made up of step-by-step instructions, again, so the children can work through them independently. And each one has challenge-based learning also incorporated in. So they may be asked to build upon a project, to change or modify something about the project. Or we also have projects where the children are just given a design brief, and then they have the freedom, once they build up some of those skills, to create something entirely unique based on their own interests. So there is a lot of flexibility in terms of the children's level and the type of projects that are available. Something else I wanted to mention, particularly for those of you that may be based in Wales, is a large number of these projects have already been translated into Welsh. Shout out to Marcus, who I think is here tonight, for your fantastic translation work. Marcus is also a seasoned Code Club leader, and I don't want to put him on the spot, but he might be willing to answer some questions about his own, from the point of view of his own experience, if you have any. And then final thing I wanted to mention is that new projects are always being released, both in English and Welsh. Yesterday, we translated a new pathway of 6 projects into Welsh, and that was released. And we have new projects being released all the time. So this is Code Club's and CoderDojo's main offering. Almost every club will run using one of these coding projects, but as I mentioned, that isn't always the case. The Lego program that Paul was talking about could also fit quite nicely into an existing code club or CoderDojo. You don't have to use these projects. They're just there as a resource if you want to use them. Okay. So as well as these coding projects, we have a selection of additional resources to help you run your club. Similar to the CoderDojo resources that Steph mentioned, we have things like posters that cover a range of coding concepts that you can use to decorate your space. We have lots of certificates to celebrate the children's achievements. We have a club organizer pack that's really useful if you're starting a new club or if you're new to running a code club. And that has all sorts of useful things in it. We have crib sheets that look in more detail at what the children will learn in each of these coding projects. So the vocabulary and the concepts that are covered. We have offline resources and icebreakers. And we have lots of promotional materials as well to help you drum up excitement for your club. So you can access all of these once you've signed up. We'll send you an email directing you to where you can find all of these resources. And again, many of these resources, particularly the posters and certificates, have been translated into Welsh, if that's something of interest in the venue that you're working. Okay, so hopefully at this point you're feeling inspired, you're feeling motivated to join one of our programs. It is a little bit different than many other volunteering experiences because we do ask for a commitment of at least a school term. So that's around 12 weeks. And this is because one of the main selling points, one of the unique selling points of Code Club and of CoderDojo, and one of the reasons that our coding clubs have such a great impact, is that we're not offering one-off interventions. They can be great for inspiring children and motivating them to take an interest in STEM. But if you really want to develop these skills and this confidence, it does take that prolonged engagement. It does take a bit of time. So we do ask for a minimum of 1-term commitment. But if that sounds like too much for you, then one option would be to team up with friends or with colleagues and share the load. So take turns running that code club. Because code clubs take place in school, you'll also have a teacher at the club each week who may be able to take over on the weeks that you can't make it. So there are ways to lighten the load a little bit if the commitment is too much. Okay, so that is it for Code Club. If you have any questions specifically about Code Club, just pop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. But now I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are relevant to both programs. Steph briefly touched on safeguarding, but of course we're working with very young people. So this is something that's really important to us and something that I just wanted to briefly touch on today. One thing that has already been mentioned is a safeguarding sponsor that I just wanted to reiterate. So if you do decide to start a new code club or CoderDojo, you will be asked to identify or to nominate a safeguarding sponsor. And this will be, at least in the case of code club, Steph, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this should be a member of staff from the venue that is hosting your club. And their job is to work with you to support and to oversee the safety of the children at your club. They don't need to attend every session, but they should be available in the event of safeguarding concern. And they should be aware of both the Raspberry Pi Foundation safeguarding procedures and also the venue safeguarding procedures, particularly in a venue like a school. They already have very rigorous safeguarding policies and procedures in place. And secondly, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that all volunteers involved in one of our clubs must have an up-to-date DBS check in place. So a DBS check that's less than 3 years old if you're based in the UK. And the best way to get one of these is to sign up for the STEM Ambassador Programme. And I think Hayley is going to talk a little bit more about that. But before I pass over, I just wanted to quickly let you know that we do have lots of guidance and information on both of our websites, the CoderDojo website and the Code Club website, about working safely with young people and about safeguarding. So again, we'll be sharing these slides. Just click the links on this slide for more information about that. And I will pass over to Hayley.
Thank you very much. So my name's Hayley and I'm the STEM Ambassador Programme Coordinator for the Welsh Hub. So we basically just try and get STEM ambassadors into schools and community groups to try and engage and enthuse children, pupils, students, young people in STEM careers, STEM subjects in school, and showcase various different career pathways as well. So currently we've got about 1,000 active STEM ambassadors on our books, which cover the whole of Wales. Most of them are based around the Swansea and Cardiff area, but we do try and get all of Wales covered. So yeah, we can do it through various different activities. So school workshops, you might mentor, there is science festivals and things like that you can take part in, and obviously after school clubs and things like that. So if we go to the next slide. So to register as the STEM ambassador, you just simply can register online using the link there. You then get an email asking you to complete your online induction. This takes around an hour and a half. It can be done in about 5 different sections. So we appreciate that not everybody has an hour and a half. We will have work and out of work commitments. So you can split that up into 5 different parts and do it a bit at a time. Once that's done, you then get an email asking you to start your DBS check. So we do a free DBS check on the condition that we ask for a commitment of 1 activity a year. So if you are going to run a Code Club or CoderDojo, then that would actually count as a different activity each week if you're going to run a club each week. So if you sign up for a 12-week session and you run one each week, then that's 12 different activities. So it's really easy to get those activities in as well. So there's lots of benefits to you personally signing up as a STEM ambassador. So you increase and develop your transferable skills, such as your communication skills, your planning, your adaptability, because we all know things go wrong at the last minute. Then sometimes, well, a lot of your activities can count towards CPD. You're covered by STEM learning insurance as well. So if you then pre-plan an activity and it's logged on our website, then you get covered by insurance. And also, if you decide to do extra things like going out and doing career fairs and stuff like that, then there's great networking opportunities and things like that. So there's lots of different ways you can become a STEM ambassador, lots of different ways you can involve yourself as a STEM ambassador. So yeah, that's pretty much. I only want to do a quick little talk. I didn't want to take up all your time, sorry.
No, that's a really useful introduction. And again, we'll be sharing these slides, so you'll have that link to the STEM website. Fab. I will pass over to Steph for the final few slides.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to kind of wrap up our presentation this evening, and all of the wonderful things we've heard about our clubs, just to highlight that they wouldn't be taking place if it wasn't for the wonderful volunteers who are running them and making them happen. So just wanted to end on a note really of thinking, like, why do people volunteer with our clubs? And everybody will have their own personal reasons as to why they want to volunteer, but some of the things we hear from our community members are on the slide here. So lots of our volunteers are excited about joining our global movement, so they're connected with volunteers and clubs across the world. Lots of people want to get involved to put their skills into practice. So even if they're existing skills, to try them out in different contexts with different people and to learn new skills as well. And another thing that we hear a lot from our community is that they want to give back. They want to give back to their community, and they feel quite empowered by the fact that they've inspired the next generation of digital makers. So lots of lovely reasons that we hear from our community, but you might have a different reason if you'd like to get involved. And then I think, yeah, we've just got some links here if you would like to keep updated with any other activities and events that we have happening for Code Club and CoderDojo. You can keep in touch with all of our latest news using the links here. Again, if you haven't got time to jot them down now, we'll send them out on the slides for you at the end. But we have lots of training workshops, informal drop-ins, tea breaks, things like that. So do keep an eye out if there's anything you'd like to come along to. And then finally, just for me to say thank you. So thank you so much for joining us this evening and for listening to our presentation. If you do have any questions that you don't think of while we're still on the call tonight, then please do feel free to get in touch. We have our contact details on the slide there. But I think that's it from us, and we're happy to look at any questions that have come up in the chat. I'm happy to dive straight in if you like with, I think there's one, was it Jeremy, were you going to?
Yep, I was going to pull together the questions, but that's going to be really easy this evening unless we suddenly get a flood. So
An influx,
do feel free to create an influx for them. So that the question that came up, and I guess this applies equally whether you're interested in CoderDojo or Code Clubs, is how do you actually finance what you need to do when you're starting and then continuing to run a dojo or a club?
That's a really good question. Shall I answer first from dojo side of things, Sarah, and then you can add anything for Code Clubs? So yeah, it's really important that our clubs are free for young people to come along to, which means we really need to have no costs for the volunteers and the venues who are running the club and pulling it together. So we find one of the best things to do is to try and find a venue that already has some tech available. So libraries are often really good for this. They have computer suites, laptops. Some of them, depending on how well they're kitted out, do actually have some hardware as well, and maker spaces. Makerspaces are also a popular venue for dojos, so try and pick a venue that already has some equipment that you can use, whether it's a school hall out of hours and they're happy to lend you their laptops and equipment. We do find that venues are happy to do this, particularly when you're looking at a library. They're also working towards the same things that dojo clubs are. They want to encourage those young people and the families into their space to use their resources and to develop those skills. So if you can find spaces that are looking to achieve the same thing as your club, then you're onto a winner. And tech, not all venues can offer it, and actually there's no point setting up a club in a space that's full of tech if the young people just aren't going to go there and it's not the right space for them. So what most clubs do is to look for donations in kind, so either from local corporate sponsors, colleges. There's often yeah, it sounds like a long shot, but we really find this is really successful. There's a lot of companies, particularly at the moment, who are looking to support young people and inspire young people into careers particularly focused around STEM. So if you can get in touch with companies, look at their corporate responsibility teams and put in those asks. And we do have template letters to help you reach out to companies to explain what the program is and to explain how the tech would help. We do say to ask for tech, so a wish list is easier to ask for, but also it keeps the work down for you. If you're accepting financial donations, that means you need to be registered as a charity, have a whole bank account set up, and that's a whole lot of extra work. So if you can get donations of tech or likewise somebody to cover the costs, so a parish council, for example, to cover the cost of a venue hire directly, then that means that you're not bringing more work in for yourselves. So yeah, we have lots of templates and things that you can use to help you get the funding. And the other thing to add is that young people are welcome to bring along their own equipment. It's best if you can provide some, because we want the clubs to be open to all and inclusive. So if you haven't got your own laptop or robotics kit to bring along, you can still come and there's something for you to do. But by all means, people are welcome to add to it with their own things from home. Sarah, I don't know if there's anything from a Code Club point of view.
No, I feel like you've covered everything very thoroughly. It's not an issue that we encounter as much in Code Clubs because schools will already have their own devices. So I feel like you've answered that very thoroughly.
Okay, that's great. Thank you both very much for that. A couple of things have popped up while you've been talking, and something's also popped up into my head as a question. We'll start with what Paul has popped into the chat. Now, you may recognise Paul as a member of the local BCS committee and the chap that's coordinating the local South Wales approach to using Lego Mindstorms to get people into coding. We've done a number of collaborative jobs with that, with both STEM and DVLA. And he's simply saying it would be great if people could indicate through the chat if you intend following up on the presentation. And I guess if you want to get in touch directly with Paul, there'll be some contact information on a final slide from Andy Bellamy right at the very, very, very end of the presentation. One of the things that occurred to me is we've talked about, or you've talked about, young people actually being present in the clubs and the dojos and what goes on in a dojo. I was wondering if you'd got any interesting and perhaps inspirational stories of what happens after the kids have sort of passed out of the age range for clubs and dojos, and what have they gone on to next?
That's a really good point. And I think for dojos as well, because we do go up to that older age range of 17. I went to visit a dojo a couple of months ago, and there was a young person who's been there since they were 8 years old, and they were coming up to their 18th birthday, and their plan was to get a new dojo set up closer to their home. So they'd been inspired by their mentors to become a mentor themselves, which is really a great legacy for the club, and fantastic that they have felt confident enough to go and mentor and set up a new club. And we also have, there's a few young people as well who are looking to use volunteering at a club as part of their Duke of Edinburgh experience, and all different ways as well. And some dojos are lucky enough to have visits from local workplaces, and some of those corporate companies I was talking about in terms of funding. A lot of companies are keen to support as well with careers workshops and showing how the skills you learn at a dojo can actually translate into a career for you in the future. Sarah, you probably have some stories from Code Clubs too.
I think I agree that the most inspirational stories for me, because with Code Club and CoderDojo, we're not trying to inspire the children to go on to study computer science at higher education, or even do a job that uses coding on a day-to-day basis. There's definitely stories of children that have gone on to do fantastic things and gone on to have fantastic computing careers. But I think what's more inspiring to me is seeing these children that age out of code clubs. I visited a code club in Penarth a couple of months ago, and there was a volunteer that was, I think, 17 and was studying computer science at college, and used to attend the school, and had stayed on as a mentor for the younger children at the school, and came down every week, which I just thought was fantastic.
Definitely. And you've made another thing pop into my head, Sarah, as well. I won't go through them all, but there is a gallery of online projects from our program Coolest Projects, which is part of the Raspberry Pi Foundation as well. And I think one of the key things is that not everybody is going to go off into a coding career, but actually if these young people can develop the skills to navigate the modern world and solve their own problems using technology, that is just amazing and inspiring to me. So we have Coolest Projects program, which has different categories of problems really that young people solve with their own ideas and their own creations, whether it's around climate change. We had lots of creative things around COVID tests, not surprisingly, a few years ago, but there's an online gallery just full of projects that are just so inspiring, with the whole range of projects that young people come up with themselves to solve real life problems.
Yeah, that's a great thing to mention. I've shared it in chat. Okay.
Question just popped up at the bottom, and I guess I'd expected it a bit earlier, particularly given our two presenters. What percentage of code clubs are female? So I think that means, do you have kind of an even gender balance in most code clubs, or how does that work? Because an overall problem in IT is the fact that girls get put off from having IT qualifications or indeed careers at a very early age.
I can answer that based on so we've run an annual survey each year, and we're currently running our 2023 annual survey at the moment, so we don't have the results of that at the moment. But we have the results from our survey last year that I am just having a look at now, because that is one of the questions that we ask.
Well, Sarah's getting those stats up as well. I think it does really vary from club to club. There are some that take place and they're only open to girls, particularly there's some in like all girls schools. But yeah, it's great that we're having an updated set of stats. And I know last weekend we had some of our dojo clubs celebrating. They had particular celebrations going on for International Women's Day, which obviously were open to boys and girls to come along to, but there were particular activities and celebrations going on around the community with that, so that was really positive to see. And you can see Marcus has put in the chat there some interesting stats about his Code Club too.
So I'm looking now, and yeah, it really varies based on club. It also varies based on country. So I'm having a look now, and in Ireland, 71% of Code Club attendees are female, whereas in the UK it's about 39.8%. So I think we're going to be publishing the results of the 2023 annual survey, so we can give you a better idea, but this is definitely something that that we're aware of and that we're working on. We really want to even out the gender split in Code Clubs and CoderDojos.
Yeah, it sounds as if we've got a lot in common as organisations. So it's something that BCS has worried about, discussed and worked on for a very long time. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of the influential people kind of within the BCS are actually ladies of various ages. Okay, so working through the questions, we've got Simon, I think, who is saying, look, there aren't any clubs or dojos where he lives or within 50 miles, which is kind of where your mapping allows you to search. How can he find out if there are other registered volunteers who live nearby and can start a club or dojo with him?
Do you have functionality for that on the CoderDojo website, Steph?
So not to search for volunteers on the platform. You can search for clubs and contact, but what we do have is the Slack community group that you can join whether you're part of our clubs or not yet, and there's a UK channel in there, so you can always put a shout out to people asking if there's volunteers in the area, because we do have some spots on the map where there aren't any clubs running at the moment, particularly post-pandemic. So we saw a lot of clubs move online, and they haven't managed to get back up on their feet after the pandemic. People have lost touch with their venues. Volunteers have moved away because they realize they can work remotely. And so actually it might be that there are still volunteers in that area who are looking to do something, but actually the club hasn't managed to navigate all of the challenges that people saw in the pandemic. So absolutely, there could be people in the area. What we also have outside of the Slack community is a whole host of resources. We actually, in response to the pandemic and the feedback we were hearing from clubs and volunteers and getting new volunteers on board, we produced a whole new bundle of recruitment resources. So if you wanted to put something out on Facebook page, for example, just to see if there was any interest, we have all of the resources ready made for you to do that. So whether it's posters that you want to stick up on walls or in the supermarkets, share them online, social media, we have lots of resources that you can kind of test the water and see if there are any other interested people.
I know Hayley said that the STEM Ambassador program can help you find volunteers, which is really useful. We don't have a way, we also don't have a function on the Code Club website for you to find other volunteers in the area. And because a lot of Code Clubs run in schools and they're not open to children outside of those schools, if they're also not looking for volunteers, they can mark themselves as private and they won't appear on the search either. But what you can do is, if you sign up as a volunteer, we run community meetups. that the function is basically just to get the community together. You can meet other people in your region that are volunteering, learn from their experiences, share your experiences, and also work together if that's what you're looking to do. If you're based in Wales, because the community is a little bit smaller, I have more capacity. I'm also happy to actually have a look into who is signed up and looking to volunteer in your area as well.
Okay, thanks for that. As a kind of a quick follow-up to that one, perhaps you'd like to just do a direct chat to Adrian M, who's popped a note into the chat saying he'd actually like to volunteer. So he sort of stood up and put his hand in the air and saying, me please, so you might like to grab that before we wrap up this evening. While you're doing that, I'll distract you with another question as well. Tina says, does Code Club show children a pathway into computer science careers? She understands that you said that you're it's not your kind of overriding goal, but we have national concerns about upskilling the nation in all things digital. Do you see yourselves as a group that's actually contributing to that upskilling?
Definitely. So to answer the first part of the question, no, we don't look at careers. And again, we don't link to any specific national curriculum. That's not our aim as a non-formal learning group. And also as an international program, it'd be really difficult to meet the criteria of every national curriculum. But we definitely are aware of the concerns of the skill gap. And we're also aware of how our own work is contributing to closing that gap. So I mentioned that we do the annual survey, and some of the questions that we ask in that annual survey explores the impact that Code Club is having on upskilling the nation, on upskilling all of the nations that we work in, all of the groups that we work with, looking at their confidence when it comes to computing, their problem solving skills, all sorts of different things. We also have, within the Raspberry Pi Foundation, we do have formal learning resources. I'm not quite sure what the branding of those is at the moment, because there's been a bit of movement, but if I can find, I don't know, Steph, if you have a website to our, or is the Raspberry Pi website the best place to
I think just to
point
start
people?
there, and then people can, or we can always send a follow-up email with the latest links afterwards.
Yeah, because there are lots of curriculum specific, UK curriculum specific resources, formal education resources, and also resources that look at career paths that children can explore after attending Code Clubs and CoderDojos as well.
Okay, little follow-up there from Tina, because obviously we've got everybody on mute, and it says, thank you very much, that would be fantastic. She's embarking on a PhD in digital tech, so there you go.
Oh, fantastic.
That would be a super person to get in touch with. So you've flushed out two really interested people
Fantastic.
so far. So the flow of questions seems to have dried up a little bit. So what I will do at the end of the session is just pick up everything from the chat I've been saving as we go along, anonymize it, and where there are questions, just get either Steph or Sarah, or Steph and Sarah, to put together just a kind of few words as a reply, and we can pop that together with the session stuff on the website. So there will be a kind of a record showing that we've answered the questions for you. So I think since chat has gone quiet, it's time for me to hand over to Andy Bellamy for the very last few moments of this evening's presentation. And I think he's there.
I'm here. Hello. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jeremy. Let me just share with you a slide that I've got. Bear with me. Okay, so well, thank you to everyone who joined us to watch the live stream tonight, and to those, excuse me, to those watching this back on our BCS channels. We hope you've all enjoyed it. Huge thank you to Sarah, to Steph, to Hayley, and to Paul for organising the talk this evening, and of course, big thank you to Jeremy for doing our Q&A comp here, and thank you very much. For those of you who are new to our BCS webinars, I'm Andy Bellamy, and I'm the chair of the South Wales branch. We're the British Computer Society, the Chartered Institute of IT in the UK. We have over 60,000 members in over 150 countries. We're a community of business leaders, educators, practitioners, policymakers, and we're all committed to our global mission, making IT good for society. Our South Wales branch has a monthly live webinar, like the one we just watched this evening, and they're available to members, non-members. We present on a diverse range of topics from across the industry, from fintech to health tech, to cybersecurity, to coding clubs, like we've heard about this evening. If you'd like to know more about what our committee gets up to, maybe you'd like to get involved, you can see on the screen there's a couple of our next events that are coming up. So we've got a webinar in March, harnessing the industrial Internet of Things and how that works at Tata Steel. And that's Wednesday, the 29th of March. And in May, we've got how computer power is aiding fusion power. And that's a joint talk that we're doing with the IET. So if any of those are of interest and you'd like to know more, you can have a look at our contacts. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter. We also have a web page, so you can follow us on the socials to keep up to date with our upcoming events. So please do. If you're interested in knowing more about what we do as a committee, maybe you'd like to volunteer, maybe you'd like to speak to our colleague Paul about joining their Lego group, or you'd like to know a little bit more about how to contact our speakers this evening, you can always come back through us as well if you like. And if you're watching this back on our YouTube channel, again, all these links are available to you. So thank you again to everyone for watching, and hopefully we'll see you at our next event, which you can book on from our website. Thanks everyone, and see you soon.